Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Lane One Making Waves podcast. On this week's episode, we have none other than Joe Finke, who is actually my father. He is currently an age group swim coach down in St. Pete at St. Pete Aquatics in North Shore Pool. He is father to three kids, my older sister Autumn, myself, and then also my younger brother Robert Finke. He has a long history in the sport. And I'm excited to kind of share this interview with you. We touch on a lot of different subjects, ranging from being a coach and a father at the same time to raising three kids in the same house, doing the same sport, up to my brother's most recent success. So I hope you enjoy and stay tuned. So, as I mentioned, this week's guest is none other than my father, Joe Finke. I like to think that I know everything there is about him, but I'm going to give him a chance to tell you all a little bit about himself and his background in the sport of swimming.
Well, obviously, my name is Joe Finke. I was born and raised in Indiana, not Florida. Uh, got my bachelor in electrical engineering from Purdue University, 1979. Went back to school and got my law degree in 1991 from Stetson University. Worked in engineering, worked as a deputy prosecutor, and eventually wound up on the pool deck.
I mean, that seems like kind of a far leap going from electrical engineering and prosecuting to the pool deck. What was it about swimming that was different than your other professions that really drew you in?
The fact that you guys were involved, quite frankly. Um, I was not a swimmer. I mean, I learned how to swim when I got married.
hmm
Uh, so your mom was the swimmer. Um, but she was taking you guys to the pool every day. And when the company that I was working for went belly up, it was one of the during the dot-com mess back in the 90s. Um, I found I was spending a lot of time taking you guys to the pool
hmm
and watching and learning. I'd watch swimming during the Olympics, 88 and 92 and back in those times. But I was never really, uh, how do I want to say it? I was never really involved in the sport. So yeah, it was because of you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I
all your
can.
fault.
Oh, always. Don't blame me. There's two other people that you
Well,
can
I
blame in
meant the
this.
three of you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. All three of us. You can blame all three of us. No. I mean, growing up, I think those car rides were something that you look back when you're in the moment, you're like, oh my gosh, why are we driving all this way to practice? What are we doing? But then growing up and looking back on it, those were honestly some of the best times in the sport. Just being in the car with you and my siblings, my brother and my sister and just reflecting on practices. And I think it really brought us closer as a family, having those car rides and those experiences. Like I said at the time, all I wanted to do was be home and stuff my face and be in bed. But also looking back on it, I mean, you didn't have to do that. Right. Like there's a lot of parents who aren't able to do that, not able to drive their kids 45 minutes to practice every day. So, I mean, it's also a true testament to like our family and who you are as a father and what you sacrificed for us as we grew up through the sport. And then it just so happened that you've continued it longer than any of us.
Well,
I
not
mean,
yet.
you're still on the pool deck, still rocking and rolling down in St. Pete with Fred Lewis and all of those young swimmers who have such great futures ahead of them. So kind of going into that, what was it like raising three extremely competitive kids in the sport of swimming?
I, I think you got that competitive spirit from me.
Oh,
I will
yeah.
if you remember when we're playing, any kind of games that we played, it was always we have to beat dad,
Yep.
and so you got that from me,
hmm
and so I was raised with that myself, kind of. I mean, I'm the last of five kids. I had an older brother, then three sisters, then myself. My competition with them though was as far as grades was concerned. It wasn't physical. Although when we played games, we liked to beat each other at that.
Yeah.
So raising you was it was normal. That's what I expected. That's what I expected to happen. And yeah, you guys were very competitive with each other and with other kids. Um, but that's normal. That's what I expected.
Yeah. I mean, everything we did was a race. It extended well beyond swimming. We
I wish some of the kids today would understand that.
Yeah, I mean, we loved competing, and more importantly, I think we liked the feeling of the success that came with quote unquote winning, whether it was winning eating our food the fastest or winning getting to the water fountain. I mean, we were so competitive that me and my sister would even put our caps on in the car because we would be 5, 10 minutes late to practice just because of when school got out. We'd put our caps on in the car and you would see us run on the pool deck so we could hop in and get in for warm up. Um,
That's what I tell the kids that I coach today is, you know, when you guys changed into your suits in the car
mhm,
and there wasn't going into the locker room and spending 15 minutes changing and then coming out, adjusting your cap, adjusting your goggles, adjusting your cap again, adjusting your goggles again, and not getting in for the first half of warm up. You guys wanted to get in the water as soon as you could.
yeah. We also wanted a better lane. So me and my sister would always be like, no, I'm getting in that lane. No, no, I don't want to swim there. I want to swim in this lane. So even though like we were competing to get in the water, it was still a competition between us too.
There's one area though that you were not competitive, and that was who goes first, because
Yeah,
neither
I
one of
mean,
you wanted to go first.
that just it comes with the territory, you know. I mean, second is the best, obviously. Sorry. No, but that's truly something that's like so swimming related. You want to go second, you want to see what's going on first. You want that little bit of jog, although I'm still not sure if there's any science behind it or if it's just pure
Yeah,
mental. So kind of going back on that, obviously with swimming and with sports and even with life, there's a lot of ups and downs. How did you kind of guide us through those ups and downs? I know we each have very different personalities. So how did you kind of cater towards all of our learning styles?
that's really tough. I mean, it really is, because yeah, you guys went through ups and downs, not at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, um, Autumn being on a plateau, not getting that trial cut for four straight meets, being a half a second off her trial cut.
Mhm.
Um, you just got to stay positive, and that's what we tried to do. That's what your mom and I tried to do: is stay positive with everything, no matter whether it was a down or whether it was an up. It was an up, great, that's easy. If it's a down, well, we got to stay positive,
Mhm.
and that's where there's a term of art or whatever you want to call it, grit, and I learned about that when I went out to the OTC, um, with Bobby on his national team or national camp, whatever it was. You know, the select camp that you went to,
Mhm.
and that's where I first heard somebody talk about grit, and I never put a word to it, but that's basically what it is: resilience and grit. And so that's what we try to instill in you guys, even if it was down. Tomorrow's got a chance to be better.
Yeah. I also think a huge part of it is also being comfortable coming to you and to mom with anything that's going on in our lives. So whether we had a bad practice, whether we did poorly on a test, we were never kind of afraid to come to you with that information. In fact, you were the first person that we would call and we would say that to. So it's also just being comfortable being able to express those tough emotions so that we are able to come together as a unit and know that that support is behind you. Yes, resiliency and grit, those are something that are absolutely huge in the sport. You won't get very far without it. You're bound to have a setback of some kind, whether it's small, whether it's big. That's not the point to it. Just they do happen in swimming and in life, and that's something that you can take away from that. But as I said, more importantly, just having that support system behind us, I think, is something that I'm forever grateful for. And kind of diving into that a little bit. Obviously, you're a coach on the pool deck. You're also our father. How did you kind of balance those two roles to make sure that we were comfortable growing up in that environment that wasn't necessarily always swimming related?
Well, um, let me caveat this with I tried to coach you once, one day, one practice. If you want to call it a practice, it wasn't even a practice. It was before practice, and I quickly found out that I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and so I backed off of that real fast and became the parent, just dad. Um, and I try to maintain that role even when I'm on the pool deck with the other kids. Yeah, I would hear Fred over saying your names and everything, and I said, "What's going on over there?" But it wasn't my focus. My focus was I knew you were in good hands with Fred.
Hmm.
I knew you were doing the best you could. We raised you to do the best you could everything you did.
Hmm.
So I wasn't worried about you in that sense. I didn't have to coach you.
Yeah.
I had to coach the other kids who are on the other side of the pool.
Hmm.
And so I could separate those. And going home, yeah, I'd ask you how practice was. But I don't think we ever really dived into anything in depth about. Never talked about stroke technique or how many strokes you were taking per lap or how many underwaters or anything like that. I mean, that wasn't my job.
Yeah.
Um, your mom and I were just here to uh, support you,
Hmm.
do everything we could to make sure you got the success that you wanted.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's absolutely huge for obviously not everyone's the same, but raising high level athletes or just raising kids, like you have to be that support system and you have to know that they are in good hands in order to build that trust and build that relationship. And it can be all about swimming. I mean, you never pushed us in any regards. You and my mom always said if we wanted to quit at any second, we could. We just
Yeah,
had
the
to
only
make
the only
sure.
caveat you had to find something else to do.
Yeah, we had to find something else that we were passionate about or something else that we enjoyed outside of school just to make sure we were well-rounded. But I knew at any point if I came to you and I said, "Hey, this isn't working, it's not for me," I wasn't afraid to do so, and that also kind of developed my love for the sport of swimming without having any pressure for it. I know I became very obsessed with swimming when I was
I was
very
gonna say
young.
the pressure you put on was put on mainly by yourself.
Yeah, no, I was very obsessed with swimming and I would go on to USA Swimming pretty much every single day, look at the top 100 times. I would search the name that was ahead of me. I'd look up their top times when they went them, where they went. And I think that also goes into kind of my next point is being a student of the sport. So a lot of people look at athletics as a completely separate activity from school, but in actuality, it is kind of a subject in its own that you kind of have to take on. I'd like for you to kind of touch on that a little bit and how athletes can become a student of the sport.
Well, I try to tell the kids that, you know, yeah, the pool is another classroom.
Hmm.
It's an hour, 2 hours, whatever we're doing, but it's another classroom. You have to have the same focus that you have in school. And some of the kids, would you do that in a classroom in your school or not? And if you would, fine, then either you're a problem in school or or something. But um, you you can't really develop a passion. I don't think you can develop a passion for the sport without knowing the history of the sport.
Hmm.
And I'm fortunate that I'm old, and so I can remember back to Mark Spitz winning his 7 gold medals in Munich. I can remember going back to '88 when he didn't do it,
Hmm.
or '68 rather. I'm talking '68 and '72. We're going even further back. '68 in Mexico City, '72 in Munich.
Hmm.
Um, and so I can remember all those times. Rowdy Gaines in '84, uh, and it's just it gives you a basis for your passion for the sport. Um, and I've told this story just recently because I just heard it recently about Rowdy. Um, he didn't start swimming until he was 17,
Hmm.
and yet 2.5 years later, he sets a world record.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you that the reason he did that is because his passion for the sport.
Hmm.
And so to develop that passion, I think you have to know the sport. You have to know
Yeah.
who went before and what they did.
Yeah. And you can tell that that really drove him, as you said, 2.5 years to set a world record is absolutely unheard of. And people pick up their passion for the sport at different points in their lives.
Yeah.
As I said, for me, it happened very young. I think I was like 6 years old, wanting to
You
sprint
were
across
six
the
years
pool deck.
old. You were 6 years old, held your first gold medal, and
I
told
was
your
like,
mom and me,
that's it, game
I want
over.
one of these. I want one of these.
I know what my life is about. But other people develop that passion later on. I mean, you see a lot of our Olympians don't start competitive swimming until high school. And
Yeah.
not to say that that's common, but it is becoming more common, I think.
Yeah.
Touching on Olympics and high level swimming, at what point in our careers did you think, oh wow, like they can really do this or they're really good at this?
Um, Easiest one to pick out is Bobby
Hmm.
because he's the most recent one, and that happened 2016 trials
Yeah.
when he made finals. I mean, before that, yeah, I shouldn't say it so cavalier, but I expected you guys to go to trials. When you made trials at 13, I kind of said, okay, I think everybody's going to go to trials.
Hmm.
Making the Olympic team, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Um, with you, I can remember when you were 13 and you were at the Charlotte Ultra Swim
Hmm.
in Charlotte, North Carolina, as a 13-year-old, and you swam the 800, and I think you finished top five. And Rowdy was calling the meet, and he said that you were somebody to look out for,
Hmm.
and I always remember that. And so I trusted Rowdy then. I trust him. Yeah, he was right. He had to look
Yeah.
out for you. And with Autumn, I knew she was competitive enough with you that whatever you did, she was going to try and beat you in it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have any doubts that she would. She kept going in 2012 trying to get that trial cut. Got it the month after trials, but
Yep, I remember that.
um, she showed that determination. So I knew that you guys were going to be very good and going to. Uh, I mean, you're elite swimmers. That's
Yeah.
it.
I think one of my memories from that Olympic trials, because it is one of my favorite memories in the sport because we all three were there together, which is something
In
that is,
16.
yeah, that was something extremely rare. Autumn was there, I was there, and Bobby was there. And that was the first time for me watching Bobby swim where I cried. For those of you who didn't pick up on it, I am definitely the emotional one in the family. Wear my heart on my sleeve. You will know how I'm feeling. But I was sitting next to my mom in prelims, and he was swimming the 1500. And at trials, it is rare for a swimmer to drop time, just because you spend so much of your time trying to get that trial cut. That when you get to trials, oftentimes you're overwhelmed. The taper doesn't hit right. It's very stressful.
Yeah, I
So
think the number is like 30% or 25%
yeah,
people drop
you kind of go into it unless you have expectations to make the team, just hoping to get close to what you were. I mean, obviously every swim you're hoping to drop, but the expectations when you're going to trials are just to soak it in. But I was sitting next to my mom. It was Bobby's 1500, and all of a sudden he just took it out. Like he just started swimming. And I was looking at the time and I was like, holy crap, what is going on? And you see the time start to come in every lap that he's swimming. And I start to tear up a little bit because you start to realize what's happening. Um, and they were calling the times from the other heats, what he needed to do to make finals. And when he touched the wall, I just started crying. I was like, holy crap, we're gonna have to change his flight. He
it.
has to stay overnight because the
Yeah,
finals for that race were the next day. So he was not expected to make finals at all because we had a flight to catch. In
yeah,
fact, I flew home and Autumn flew home and we had to watch his finals because we didn't have a hotel room for that night.
yeah.
Um, but that was the moment that it truly sunk in for me that like yeah, he's gonna keep going and he's gonna do this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I
so
wasn't there. I had to stay home and coach.
yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible ride, and kind of touching on his successes in the sport. Uh, what was kind of your proudest moment, in the sport of swimming, like watching him?
Specifically to Bobby.
Yes, specific to young Robert Fink.
I have to think about that. Proudest moment. It wasn't watching him. Okay, and this is
Mhm.
going to make me tear up a little bit.
Good.
Um,
Emotions.
2021 trials. Um, I'm there as a coach, so I'm down below and in the back and everything. I get to go all over it, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
um,
VIP
but
privilege.
I'm at the over at the video replay, and Kieran Smith and Brennan Gravely were there,
Hmm.
and I introduced Kieran. I already knew Brennan. I'd never met before, and Brennan said something.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, you're gonna make me tear up.
well, this applies to all three of you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not just Bobby. But he said Bobby's a great swimmer, but he's a better person,
Hmm.
and that means more to me than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that was always instilled in us. Um, and it's a testament to you and mom and to our upbringing and to everyone in our lives that even just spoke to us. It goes to our teachers, it goes to our coaches, it goes to Coach Fred, Coach Nesty, Coach Gino. Like every person in our lives was so uplifting that we knew that we wanted to be the same in other people's lives. And so I've always said the same thing to Bobby as well. I said, every time I do an interview about you, like they always ask me about your accomplishments. They always ask me about your medals, how you felt about swimming, what were we like growing up. But I think that if people actually got to know the kid, um, they would ask him more questions about his personality and about who he is as a person. Because, like you said, who he is and who Autumn are in the water, that's only 5%. I would give
Yeah.
it less than I would give it less than that. 5% of who they are as people and the qualities and characteristics that they portray and how they uplift people and just the positive impacts that they have on the community and in life.
Well, I tell the kids that I coach, and I tell the parents in
Mhm.
particular, um, that it's swimming, it's not life,
Yeah.
and it's more important to be a better person than to be a great swimmer.
Yeah.
Um, Not that you can't be both,
Hmm.
but you know, let's concentrate on the character issues more than
Yeah.
anything else.
And I mean, everything kind of relates back to swimming, which is something that I've always focused on, especially as I've kind of moved on from my time in the water to my time out of the water with the sport, is that all of the characteristics and qualities that you have are, as a person, they don't just immediately disappear when you dive in the water. In fact, they enhance who you are when you're in the water. And likewise, the type of swimmer that you are, those characteristics and qualities, they will apply to your life outside of the water. Um, so like you are a whole person and who you are doesn't just disappear depending on what you're doing. So it is
Yeah.
important to make sure that you're working on those characteristics, you're working on time management, and you're working on your resiliency, you're working on your grit, your mental attitude, even the words that you speak. Having those positive thoughts, positive affirmations, even when things are difficult, they're going to get you a lot further than doing an extra 50. in my
Mhm.
opinion. Don't talk to your coach about that. Um, Yeah, but kind of also going into the Olympic experience. I know in 2021, spectators weren't allowed in the crowd. So although Bobby was competing in his first Olympics, we weren't able to go and watch. And from my standpoint, I can just remember us all in the living room. We didn't even go to a watch party. We were in the living room. We had the TV all the way up, just watching him swim in finals. Can you kind of walk us through what you were feeling in the moments watching his first Olympic final?
Well, obviously you're proud that, that
Hmm.
he's there. No expectations whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we didn't have a watch party. I mean, I had a request to hold a watch party, and I said, "Nah, this is the 800. No, we're not going to do that."
Yeah.
We had one for the 1500 later,
Yeah.
but the 800 now, and it was just all of us in the living room, like you said.
Hmm.
And I'm just watching, and he's running fifth. I said, "That's great. Keep it
Keep
going,
going.
Bobby. Keep going. Don't
I was
don't
like,
worry."
Sid is great.
It's and then when that last lap came, I mean, it was total shock.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about, they talk about now that he's the guy with the last 50.
Hmm.
He never swam that way before. I'm sorry, but and he never had to, quite frank. I hate to say it that way, but he never had to. Well,
Hmm.
he did, but he did once, but he messed up. But um, and that was 2017 uh, Nationals. I think it's 17 Nationals when Zane Grothy beat him, came back in
Hmm.
the last lap and beat him. But
He's like, I'm
he,
gonna try that.
uh,
And
yeah,
so Bobby's like, I'm gonna
exactly.
try that
Maybe
one.
I'll try that later. But I mean, you watch his 1650 in college. He lapped everybody. It wasn't like he was trying to come back on the last 50 on anybody.
Hmm.
All of his 1500s before that, he wasn't trying to come back on anybody. That was the first time that I've seen him do that.
Yeah.
Other than in a 400 IM where I saw him come back on a freestyle leg, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so watching him do that, I mean, yeah, we were jumping up and down. You know, did that really? What did I just see? What happened? And it was just, I don't know, total elation, just like unbelief.
Yeah.
Unbelief.
And I mean, I think even because he completely out touched people. And so even when he touched the wall, I thought he got fourth or I thought he got third. And then the animation popped up next to his name.
Yeah.
And I always tell people I think I blacked out because I don't remember it. Apparently, I was screaming like
Yeah.
bloody murder.
Yep.
Apparently, I was.
We all were.
Yeah, Autumn told me later on that it was an accident. I'm sorry. I guess I was swinging my arms and I shoved her on the couch, um, just because it was pure shock and kind of pure disbelief. But I think there's a lot of moments in his career where you can go back on and be like, oh, that was the moment. Like, no, like that was the moment.
Yeah.
No, maybe it was like this moment. Um, but he's just had this like great series of moments.
Yeah.
But I would like to go back to his shining moment in our swimming career. And you say he's never done that last 50 before, and I think that's funny because I vividly remember a time where that was I was the victim to it. I'll say that. Um,
That's a different story.
it was the first time he ever beat me in practice. We were doing a set of 300s, and he's never beaten me in practice before. He's come close, and I've always done the out touch thing. And I look over my younger brother, I'm like, beat you up. But this time it was different, and I think it was one of the last times I ever beat him in practice, and that kind of goes into his trajectory. Once it happens, he's going to keep going. And we were doing this set of 300s, and I was ahead of him the whole way up until the last 50, and then all of a sudden this kid starts kicking. And he starts kicking and he starts pulling, and I'm doing all that I can to stay ahead of him. And he touches the wall. And that was that. And I think that's the moment I was like, well, It was fun while it lasted. You go do you and I'll do me. But now you're going first in the lane, always and
Yeah,
forever.
yeah,
Um, but after his 2021 success, obviously swimmers kind of go through highs, they go through lows. It's a long time waiting for the next Olympic cycle.
yeah.
Um, and fortunate enough, we had the opportunity to be at the 2024 trials in Indianapolis with him. And I think something that very few people understand about the sport of swimming is someone can be the fan favorite by a mile for the mile. Um, but up until that moment, you never really know what's going to happen, right? Because in sports, things happen all the time. You can get sick, you can get injured, you can get hurt. And so, even though he was the favorite to qualify for the Olympics, up until you see that one or one, two on the scoreboard, nothing is guaranteed. Like I said, we all had the opportunity to be at trials. Can you kind of walk us through your experience in Indy and how you felt in that huge sports setting compared to Omaha?
Well, yeah, being in the NFL football stadium was only my second time in a stadium, a football
Mhm.
stadium. The first time was with the Buccaneers back in the '80s, I think it was,
Yeah.
and it was the old sombrero in Tampa, with
Hmm.
nothing like Lucas
Yeah.
Oil Stadium, nothing like Lucas Oil Stadium. Just an incredible. I mean, you get lost in there easily.
Hmm.
And so being down there and the setup, the pool setup was basically the same as Omaha.
Hmm.
With a warm up pool in the back the same way, and the competition pool. But it is so cool being on deck, being on that competition pool deck.
You get
Uh,
chills.
yeah, there's just nothing like it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just me. That's not even as an athlete like you were. Um, and of course, then the we watched the 800, but then the unexpected happened,
Yep.
which meant we all got COVID except for you.
Winning.
Yeah, except for you.
Winning.
So none of us were there for the 1500 except for you.
Winning.
So we had to watch that on TV,
Yep.
from my brother-in-law, his uncle's, who lives in Carmel, Indiana,
Hmm.
from his house. Uh, and so yes, I expected him to win both the 800 and the 1500. There wasn't really anybody who was come close to his times, and so I didn't really have any. There was no nervousness about it. Although yes, things can happen,
Yeah.
and things do happen. Um, but once he gets the first 300 in, yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, this is the way it's going to be.
I always like I hold my breath for the start because
Yeah,
I have false started in 4 a.m. before. So every time once they're in the water, I'm like, are your goggles on? They're on. Okay, we're good.
yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So once he had the first like 2 or 300 in, there's no nerves whatsoever.
Hmm.
And so it's always a fun experience watching, um, because I was there every night until I got COVID. Um, Even when Bobby wasn't swimming,
Yeah.
I was able to watch the races, and it's just the emotion that comes out is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I remember about that trials, though, more than other than getting COVID, was David Shackley. Um, they went to he had a group, and they went to the tier shop
Hmm.
and bought every tier Fink cap there was, and then went back and bought every Nick Fink cap there was, and drew an E on the end of it.
Oh my goodness.
And so over on the side where they did the awards, the podiums, you had, I don't know, what, 40 or 50 people with Fink caps on. They were wearing swim caps in the audience, and that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I think even like just being on the pool deck and watching finals, there's a lot at stake for these athletes. I mean, they've
yeah,
trained their whole lives, their whole careers, and to get top two and this time even top one because of how many athletes qualified. It's nerve-wracking for the parents and the athletes and everyone involved, but the way
That
that
was
the community came together was incredible. I mean, we were down there, we got some really nice seats for the finals of the events, and there were a lot of families in that area that had swimmers swimming in finals, and you can kind of see every emotion known to mankind running through those stands. But the really cool thing about it is there was so much sportsmanship, there was so much camaraderie, there was so much respect, and there was so much support for people that you had never met before. I mean, Bobby in the mile, we had so many people come up and congratulate us, and it's like, what do you mean? And
yeah.
I just sat here, cheered a couple of times, stood around, but I mean, it's because they know it goes into it and they know what goes into the sport. So I think that's something that was really cool and really memorable about that experience as well.
Yeah, 21 was more nerve-wracking than
Mhm.
24.
Absolutely.
21 there was no, and yeah, I was able to be a coach on deck at 21 as well, but that was more nerve-wracking. I sat in the stands and watched, and uh, not knowing what was going to happen,
Yeah.
um, because he'd never, I mean, it'd been since 2016.
Yeah.
So
No, and I'd be a fool if I didn't mention kind of what happened after Indy, all of us going to Paris and that experience. So in 2021, none of us were able to go to Tokyo, but we were very, very fortunate this time around that we had a whole fan club kind of go to Paris to support Bobby. We had the whole immediate family. We had our cousins. We had his girlfriend's whole family. She brought like 12 people. So we had a whole support system there. Um, and I kind of want to go back to touching on resiliency and grit. Bobby swam the 800 first, and he won a silver medal. Uh, and he was happy with it, but at the same time, he was disappointed with it. And people are like, how could he be unhappy with the silver medal? Like, does he even care about the sport? Like, that's amazing, blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. But I think that how he kind of came back from that silver medal to win the gold and set the world record in the 1500 is something that needs to be touched on. So can you kind of go through the motions from the 800 to the 1500 and what you saw and the difference in Bobby?
um, well, there were two reactions to his silver medal.
Mhm.
Um, One was, yeah, that's great. You know, you got a silver medal, you got second in the Olympics. I mean, how many people do that?
Yeah.
The other reaction was, I mean, he said it afterwards. He was kind of pissed that he got second. He thought
Yeah.
he should. He knew he could win, but he got second.
Mhm.
Uh, Daniel Whiffen was just a little bit better that day,
Mhm.
um, and people said they really liked the fact that he was not happy.
Yeah.
That it put more impetus onto him for the 1500.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think going from the 800 to the 1500, watching the prelims for the 1500 was a little bit nerve wracking
Yeah.
because he came out of that as the sixth seed,
Mhm.
and he didn't even win his prelims heat. I
Mhm.
think he was second or third in his prelims heat. But it was such a strange Olympics because you had favorites that didn't even make finals.
Yeah.
Sam Short didn't make the 800 final. Um, you didn't have Wellbrock make the final in the 1500 or
Mhm.
the 800. Um, and so it's just a little strange. But going between the 800 to the 1500, um, yeah, Bobby used that energy that he had from the 800 miss. And as I think, as he said, he says, if I had won the 800, I don't know if I would have set a world record in the 1500.
Mhm.
I don't know that he would have changed his strategy in the 1500. And I think that Yeah, you put that emotion into the next race, and that's what he did,
Yeah.
and that's what everybody has to do.
Yeah.
You can't dwell on that 800, but go for that 1500.
Yeah.
And that's his favorite race anyway.
True. True. The longer the better, but nothing past 1500. He hates open water.
Yeah,
But as you said, I mean, you can have a bad swim, but it won't be a bad meet. And even if it is quote unquote a bad swim, it's not really a bad swim. It's only a bad swim if you don't learn anything from it. So if you go away and you don't
that
reflect,
sounds familiar.
you go away and you don't reflect on anything, you kind of don't switch your stance or change your mindset going into the next race. I mean, they say insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And so it was really inspiring for me. I mean, even as his older sister, to just see the change from the 800 to the 1500. I mean, a lot of people easily could have just said, oh, I missed my taper, not my meet, got silver. Like, I'm happy, that's fine. But there's still more work to be done. So if you're at a swim meet, if you're a young swimmer and your first race, you kind of feel off, something's not right. It doesn't mean that the rest of the meet is going to be the same. A lot of times you'll get more warmed up throughout the meet. A lot of times you can change your mindset. You change what you eat, look at your pre-race fuel, look at your warm down, look at your warm up, look at your paces. There's a lot of things you can do even in between such a short period of time that can ultimately like change the outlook of that whole meet.
Well, even Bobby has said that, yeah, when he dove in on the 1500, he felt really good,
Hmm.
but that he can count on one hand the number of times he's ever dove in and felt really good.
Yeah.
It's not the usual case, and
No.
so you have to get used to the fact that, hey, this doesn't feel right. I'm still going to go.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Kind of touching on the emotions of that race for us as a family, and I mean even us as a community, and we had so many people even supporting our family, not just Bobby and his swim, but I'll always remember the second that he touched the wall. All I knew was that he won. I didn't even see that he got the world record. Apparently, I have a habit of missing things, and I look up and I say, "Oh my gosh, there's more."
well, there's video of you on that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was like, but wait, there's more. And so I look up and like immediately just like start screaming again. I mean, you start crying, you go through the whole emotions of it, but I don't think it honestly really hit until you see him receive that medal. Until you hear the national anthem playing, until you see him kind of walk towards you. I'm gonna get emotional. And you see that look on his face of just pure happiness. And it's not only that moment. I think that's a lot of misconceptions that people have. They're like, oh, he's really happy because he won. Yes, but also it's because all of the moments before it led up to that moment. So his world record, it didn't start in Paris, it didn't start in India, it didn't start in Tokyo. I mean, it started when he was a 3-year-old and you had to yell at him to get out of the water because he was in the deep end when he was supposed to be in the shallow end.
Yeah.
And as a family, kind of like knowing that and seeing all of his hard work finally pay off for such an amazing person that is the most deserving of everything. There's also a very famous photo of you kind of hugging him when he walked over to us as a family. You have your arms wrapped around him and you do have some tears in your eyes. Can you kind of
Well,
explain explain mentally what was happening in that moment? Because we have a great visual of it, but I'd like to hear your words behind the picture.
um, as much as he was happy, I was happier.
Hmm.
You want to see your kids succeed, and I mean that was it for him for now. For
For
now,
now.
as he said, I got my first world record, my first one. So
Mhm.
he's planning on more. I assume after that.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, anytime you kids have really done anything, I mean, it's not just that moment. I remember when you swim in the 400 IM and flags or JOs, whatever they called it at the time, long course, and I'm videotaping it,
Oh, wow.
and I turn around. Yeah, that's exactly.
Hmm.
I turn around and shoot the scoreboard, and I see your time. Oh wow! I mean, those kind of moments.
Hmm.
I obviously you don't forget them,
Yeah.
and that's a moment I won't forget
Hmm.
with Bobby. Um, the other moment I won't forget with Bobby was after his 800 in Omaha in
Hmm.
21. When I went down below after he got finished with the race, and he came over and gave me a hug.
Hmm.
You don't forget those.
No, it's the small things that aren't small. Um, give you a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. You better delete this part.
Um, Obviously, as a family, I mean, I'm very biased. I think we've done a lot of things right. Not everything's been perfect along the way, and I think that's very important to point out. There's a lot of ups, there's a lot of downs, but as I said in the beginning, I think the support system that we have for one another is something that like speaks volumes and is something that we are all very thankful for and brought us to where we are today. I mean, Autumn, my older sister, she swam distance at the University of Florida. She got second at SECs, numerous time NCAA qualifier. Um, she went to law school when Bobby was actually swimming his 800. She was taking the bar exam. So she had no idea what was going on. So it was an equally exciting day for everyone in our family, and I was happy to just be the little cheerleader and support where I could. But yeah, Autumn, she now has a job at a firm in uh, Miami area, and Bobby's still swimming, and so I think that you guys are a huge support to that. But I'd also like to ask you what is one piece of advice you have for other swim parents out there?
One piece of advice.
One,
Um,
two, three. What is your advice for other parents out there just looking to support their children?
don't tear down their dreams.
Mhm.
Don't tell them, if a kid comes up to you like you did, 6 years old, seven, actually, I think you were seven at the time. No, you were six. And you have a gold medal in your hand from the 1980, whatever the Olympics were in 96 Olympics, I guess, in Atlanta,
Mhm.
and one of the synchronized swimming, whatever they call it now, gold medals. And you said, I want one of these. We didn't say no.
Yeah.
We didn't say, oh, that's going to be too hard. Oh, that's nah, nah. What we told you is, you want that, you got to work hard for it. And you understood that.
Mhm.
And that's what you did. Um, and so my advice to parents is don't tear down their dreams, support their dreams. Um, your mom and I put everything we could into you kids because, uh, you know, you're the ones I leave behind. It's not the money, obviously. Um, there's nothing else that I leave behind that's worth more than you guys.
You're leaving me speechless. No, and I
Good.
mean, I think no, I mean that's great advice for not only parents but just for everybody. If you have an athlete and you're a coach that comes up to you and they say they want to do this, don't steer them away from it. I mean, help them.
Yeah.
Let it be known like what needs to go into it. I mean, don't say, yeah, you can totally do that if you're just coming to practice one day a week, but be realistic, but also like don't tear down their dreams. Like I said, whether
Yeah.
you're a coach and it's an athlete, whether you're a teacher and it's a student, whether you're a parent and it's your child, or even whether it's just one of your friends. I mean, we're a community and we need to be supporting one another. And I think oftentimes, especially with social media and with how negative things can be nowadays, we see a lot of people tearing each other down, but that's not going to help anything or anybody. And it goes back into that positive mindset and that positive mind frame. I mean, we all need to be uplifting each other, whether it's in your community or someone else's.
And the swimming community is larger than what you think it is.
Hmm.
Um, we're at the emergency room the other night, and the doctor, as he's leaving the room, says, "Oh, your son did really great in the 1500." And wait, we didn't tell him who we were or who Bobby was or anything. Well, how do you know that? Oh, well, my son swims for such and such club. And so, yeah, we watched it on the TV. People know, uh, people don't give swimming enough credit, I think, in broadcast industry anyway.
Hmm.
That there are people out there who know what swimming is, but then they're also learning from everybody else. Um, as you say, we're a close community. It may be broad, but we're close, and we support each other. Um, Dealing with parents, yeah, as a coach can be a pain, but
Challenging.
yeah, okay, challenging. But you have to remember, but I have to remember I was a parent too,
Hmm.
and I had the same concerns, um, or the same, questions, the same things going on. Um, and so you can't just dismiss, oh, that's a parent talking, because I was dismissed a lot of times
Hmm.
as just a parent, which you guys didn't realize, but yeah.
I just wanted to swim. I was just there to swim.
Yeah, well, you gave us a hard time about swimming at one time.
Not me. Must have been the
Yeah,
other.
I was
Must have
you.
been one of the other ones. Um,
Where I had to promise I would get in the water once. It's just so you would get in the water. Of course, I didn't live up to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm waiting.
Yeah, you can keep on waiting.
No, but I mean, I also think that that relates back to coaches as well. A great piece of advice for coaches is to also just be there for your swimmers. I mean, you want them to be comfortable around you. You still have to have that respect and ensure that the swimmer is doing what they need to do. But ultimately, a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer. And so, whatever you can do to make the sport fun while also encouraging them during training goes a long, long way, whether it's a song. Like I loved music when I swam. Bobby hates music. I think it's weird. Whether it's like some favorite songs, let them pick out a playlist, or whether it's happy birthday swims or just something to keep the sport engaging and let them know that you care about them beyond the water.
Yeah, that's one thing we don't really do a whole lot of is play music during practice. That happens more in college
It
and
does.
than
I
in other
loved it.
settings. But I mean, we play music during Christmas season. That's about it.
Hmm. I mean, you
Um,
get it where you can.
yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I think we've touched on a lot of subjects. We've kind of gone on a roller coaster of emotions, which is on par with me and our family and the sport of swimming in general. I mean, it is a whole roller coaster of ups and downs, and I think that uh, hopefully someone will get at least some takeaway from all of the topics that we've discussed today. So before we end this, I would like to go through just a few rapid fire questions for you. So the first one is, what is your favorite season?
What if I say winter?
Oh, that's just such
Summer.
a political answer. There you go. Sorry, Adam. Too many leaves fall during your season. If you had to pick any event to be good at and you were a professional swimmer, what event would you swim?
Professional swimmer?
Professional
What
swimmer.
event?
Hmm.
Oh wow, that's a strange question for me. 100 breaststroke.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say breaststroke. So kind of a
That's the one that I could beat you guys at for the.
yeah. No, a story into that. I mean, we would go to the pool even if it wasn't for practice when we were younger. We would always want to go on the weekends just to do cannonballs and jump in the water. And we'd always want my dad to get in the water with us. We would want to race him, even on days we weren't supposed to be racing. And the only way we would ever get him in the water and the only stroke you would ever do was breaststroke. And for some reason, I kid you not, you would beat us every
Of
single
course,
time.
I could probably still beat you.
And You should have tried it. I mean, you honestly, you should have tried 100 breaststroke when you were younger. You had to go into law.
Well, that when I was growing up, where I grew up, there
Hmm.
wasn't even a lap pool
That'll do it.
at the time. In Madison, Indiana, they had Crystal Beach, which was a half moon pool.
Hmm.
There are no lane lines in it. There's no walls that you could make a flip turn on or anything.
Yeah.
Sunrise Country Club had a pool, but it was a country club private, so you couldn't go there as a public.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't any place to grow up as a swimmer in Madison at that time when I grew up in the
So
60s.
chilly. It's cold.
So, yeah.
I don't like swimming in the cold, but yeah, you
Yeah.
would kick our butts at 100 breaststroke.
Yeah.
Um, so we always like to say Nick Fink is our cousin because he doesn't have
Yeah.
an E at the end of his name. I guess he better watch out. If you could have one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh. Oh, wow. Just the entree or what?
Yes, entree.
Crab legs.
Crab legs. Interesting.
Yeah.
Difficult. Messy.
Yeah.
Good.
Very good. Yes.
Very good. And last question. If you had to be involved in a sport that wasn't swimming, so if you had to either coach or compete in a sport that wasn't swimming, what would it be?
Well, growing up in Indiana was basketball.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'd probably say basketball.
Not archery?
No, I mean, I thought about shooting,
Hmm.
uh, uh, and when I lived in Akron uh, for that short time that they had snow, I did have cross country skis. Um, but no, I'd probably do basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, basketball or volleyball, one of the two,
I'm not coordinated enough for any sport that involves extra equipment. I need something that is purely just with my body.
which is why you're running now.
Yep, that's true. Swimmer turned runner seems to be a trend that they say they'll never do, but they always do.
Yeah,
But I want to again just thank you for taking the time to kind of sit down and rehash and relive kind of some of our experiences throughout the sport. Like I said, hopefully, there's at least one takeaway that someone watching this will get from hearing us speak and hearing our experiences. And like I said, I did not coerce, right? I did not bribe,
nope,
not beg. He came on
no,
willingly, and all the answers are his own.
yeah, for the most part, yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that interview. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe, like, and share this podcast to all of your swim friends. Here are all of the platforms you can find all things Lane 1 making waves related. Also, again, a special shout out to the International Swim Coaches Association. Without their help and support, I would not be able to bring this to the swimming community. So stay tuned next week, and we'll see you there.